Welcome to Beyond the Bench. I'm Juliana Vance. Today, we're bringing you a story it's one of those stories that tests your faith in the very idea of justice. We're talking about Michael Vega.
And I'm Dr. Tom Ellis. What you're going to hear today is an anatomy of a betrayal captured on tape. At its surface, it's a standard competency-to-stand-trial evaluation. But as we'll see, it's so much more sinister than that.
It really is. You have to understand who Michael is. This is a man who is a triple amputee. He has spent a lifetime enduring dozens of excruciating surgeries, culminating in a failed experimental hip implant, the Phoenix implant, one of only 5 ever made, with the other 4 having failed years ago. His entire life has been defined by medical trauma.
And that trauma is central here, Juliana. This evaluation wasn't just to see if he could understand the charges. It was also the state's one chance to examine how his severe PTSD could have impaired his state of mind. To potentially establish a defense of not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. They had a dual responsibility. And they failed on both.
They failed spectacularly because the incident itself, it's horrifying. Michael was forced to drive a vehicle under duress by the county's #1 most wanted man, Christopher Foster. Foster threatened him, even threw his walker out of the car so he couldn't escape. It's just unimaginable.
And the system's response was, to put it mildly, incompetent. They had this most wanted man, Foster, right there, and they misidentified him as some harmless random guy named Ed Becker, and just let him go. Meanwhile, the woman with him, Danielle Allen, vanishes from the scene, picked up by an off-duty officer within minutes. It makes no sense.
It's maddening. So the real perpetrators are gone, and the only person left is Michael Vega, the disabled man who was coerced, the man for whom any incarceration would be a literal death sentence given his medical needs. He's the scapegoat. And this evaluation, this is the weapon they use to erase his truth.
Exactly. In these audio clips we're about to play, you will hear an evaluator who systematically ignores Michael's profound insights. You'll hear Michael's brilliant legal mind, a mind that understands justice better than his evaluators, get dismissed as overthinking or being argumentative.
And you'll hear his resilience, his unwavering belief in the system, even as it's actively betraying him. It's just incredible to listen to. The contrast between his clarity and the evaluator's bias is everything.
The evaluation begins, as they often do, with a series of seemingly simple procedural questions. But listen closely to the tone. It sets the stage for the deeply flawed analysis that follows, and you can hear the bias from the very first minute.
Exactly. You can feel the agenda right from the start. So, let's get right into it. This is the very beginning of the state's competency evaluation of Michael Vega.
Is it a misdemeanor or a felony?
If I'm not mistaken, mine is not misdemeanor. Mine is actually a felony.
Yep,
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you know the basic difference between a misdemeanor and a felony? How do we tell them apart?
Yeah, one of them results in, certain rights being taken. Not necessarily that they shouldn't be, right? Obviously, including, the right to leave the country, or the right to, I believe, gun, maybe, firearms, voting, things like that. And then I would assume that there's something to do with maybe prison.
Wow. Okay, so right out of the gate, we talked about the system's bias, and there it is. The evaluator asks a basic question, and Michael doesn't just answer, he delivers a whole lesson in civics and human rights.
He does. It's immediately clear that the evaluator is completely unprepared for that level of articulation. You ask a perfunctory question expecting a textbook definition, and instead you get this profound meditation on the loss of fundamental rights.
Exactly. He immediately goes to the human cost, the right to vote, to travel. He isn't just regurgitating legal terms he read somewhere. He's showing that he deeply understands what's at stake, what it means to be a citizen and have that stripped away.
And that calm delivery is what is so incredibly telling. This isn't just an abstract intellectual exercise for him. For Michael, with his severe medical vulnerabilities, a felony charge and the threat of prison isn't a concept. It's a death sentence. His composure signals a profound, personal grasp of the stakes, not any kind of detachment.
And you can almost feel the evaluator getting wrong-footed by it. Michael is operating on a completely different intellectual and ethical plane. He's trying to engage with the substance of justice. And the evaluator is just trying to, check a box? It is so incredibly insulting.
It's more than insulting. It sabotages the entire evaluation from the very beginning. This checklist approach means they'll never be able to properly explore the nuances of his PTSD and how it impacted his state of mind during the incident. You can't lay the groundwork for a temporary insanity defense if you refuse to have a conversation deeper than, what is a felony?
It's like they want him to be simple, to fit into their neat little incompetent box, but he just won't do it.
Let's hear that now.
Which one's considered worse overall, getting a misdemeanor or getting a felony?
Obviously a felony, right?
Yes. I'm just covering all my bases.
So he just gave this incredibly articulate, nuanced answer about the devastating, lifelong consequences of a felony conviction. He talked about losing the right to vote, to travel, to own a firearm. And her follow-up question is, what's considered worse? It's so insulting.
It's deeply patronizing. But the most revealing part, for me, isn't the question itself. It's her response after he answers. That little laugh and the phrase, I'm just covering all my bases.
Right. That laugh is so dismissive. It's like she's saying, okay, thank you for your thoughtful answer, little man. But now I have to check the box for the simple-minded question. It completely invalidates everything he just said.
Covering all my bases. That's the language of bureaucracy, not psychology. It's a verbal slip that tells you everything you need to know about her mindset. This is not a genuine inquiry into his mental state. It's a checklist. She has a form, and she needs to fill it out, and Michael's actual intellect is just an obstacle.
It establishes the whole power dynamic for the entire evaluation. She's the expert, he's the subject, and she will not treat him as an intellectual peer. It's clear she's already decided he isn't one, despite the evidence he's literally giving her.
And a checklist approach is, it's fundamentally incapable of fulfilling the dual purpose of this evaluation. You cannot assess the profound complexities of PTSD and a potential temporary insanity defense by simply covering your bases. It requires empathy, deep listening, all of which are absent here.
It's a complete sham, really, from the start. So having checked the does he know a felony is bad box, she just moves right along to the next item on her list. She asks him about the job of a defense attorney.
And once again, his answer is so much more principled and sophisticated than her question deserves. He doesn't just give the simple answer. He gives a mini treatise on the presumption of innocence in America. Let's hear it.
What is the job of your attorney, a defense attorney? What are they supposed to do for you?
To provide me with the best legal counsel, given that I'm not educated with regards to the law, and whether I'm actually guilty or innocent in this country in general, innocent until proven guilty. So the idea is just to at least ensure that this person has adequate legal representation in the system.
Come on. After the evaluator talks down to him with those yes or no questions, Michael comes back with that. That wasn't just a definition. That was a defense of the entire American legal system from a man being crushed by it.
It's more than that, Juliana. It's a philosophical statement. He says the right to a defense attorney isn't about whether you're actually guilty or innocent. It's about the principle of innocent until proven guilty. That is an astonishingly sophisticated and ethical viewpoint.
especially coming from him. He knows he was forced to drive that car. He knows the most wanted man he was with was just let go. And yet he still believes so deeply that the system of justice and rights is good and true. It's just heartbreakingly noble.
And from a legal standpoint, it's overwhelmingly demonstrates competency. He's articulating that he can work with his attorney to present a defense. And that's the whole point. He's practically spoon-feeding the evaluator the standard for competence.
Right. And he needs that attorney to expose the truth. The fact that Christopher Foster, the county's most wanted, was misidentified and released as Ed Becker. The fact that Danielle Allen disappeared with an off-duty cop. The fact that his walker was thrown from the car. He understands a lawyer is needed to fight these systemic lies.
And a competent evaluator would seize on this. They'd say, okay, he's clearly fit for trial. Now let's dig into the substance of this defense his lawyer will mount, the coercion, the PTSD, the state of mind. But by treating this like a vocabulary test, the evaluator completely fails to do the second and arguably more important part of their job.
It's a pattern that just gets worse. Next, he's asked about the role of the judge and prosecutor, and his answer is, again, flawless. But it's the way the evaluator starts to push back against his intelligence. That's where things get really ugly.
Yes, the pushback against his intelligence is a theme. Let's listen to that exchange now.
What is the basic job of the prosecutor? What do they want to do?
Well, obviously, so they're more or less representing the state, but the people in a way.
Yeah.
And the idea is that this crime has been committed, and so they are to advocate in defense of that crime or that statute, that wrongdoing by leading the case, leading the proceedings against.
So they lead the proceedings against
whoever the defendant is.
The level of detail he provides there is frankly remarkable. He doesn't just say, they try to put you in jail. He talks about them representing the state and the people. I mean, that's a civics lesson.
It is. And the tone. He is so confident and so clear. He's not guessing. He's explaining the role with this deep moral framework. He sees the prosecutor as an agent of justice, someone who advocates against that wrongdoing.
And the irony is just dripping from that statement, isn't it? In his case, the prosecutor's office is the very body ignoring the actual wrongdoing, ignoring the fact that Christopher Foster, a wanted man, walked free, and that his accomplice, Danielle Allen, just vanished.
Exactly. The prosecutor is supposed to represent the people. But in Michael's case, they're railroading one of the people to cover for a complete systemic breakdown. And Michael, in his profound integrity, is describing the job of his own persecutor better and more ethically than they are doing it themselves.
And this goes right back to the dual purpose of this valuation. A competent psychologist would hear that and think, this man has an incredibly strong moral compass and legal understanding. Let's explore how that informed his terrified state of mind during the incident.
It's all just fodder for their checklist.
And rather than give him the slightest bit of credit, the evaluator is simply going to continue with her insultingly trivial questions while Michael continues fighting for his life. Let's hear it.
So is the prosecutor looking out for your best interest?
I think the prosecutor, I guess I'm not exactly sure about this, but I'd assume that they probably take some sort of an oath, or probably, they have some sort of a mantra or principles that they're representing the people as a whole, and so just justice in general. So are they looking out for my best interests? Well, they're looking out for the best interests of the people, period. And I have.
Your side, this way, are they on your side? The prosecutor.
I'd like to. This feels like a trick question.
He called it. He literally called it a trick question. I mean, the evaluator sets this simplistic adversarial trap, and Michael just steps around it and says, I see what you're doing.
It's an incredible moment of metacognition. He's not just playing the game. He's analyzing the rules of the game in real time. That pause before he speaks tells you everything. He's thinking, processing, and refusing to give the simple no the evaluator's baiting him with.
And his answer, even after identifying the trap, he doesn't get cynical. He offers this beautiful, hopeful theory that the prosecutor represents justice in general and the people as a whole. I mean, given that his own prosecutor is ignoring all the evidence about Foster and Allen to railroad him, that level of faith is just staggering.
It's a critical juncture that a competent evaluator would have explored. Why does this man, facing such a clear case of selective prosecution, still hold this idealistic view? That question opens the door to his entire character, his state of mind, maybe even how his trauma has shaped his worldview. But the opportunity is completely missed.
Missed is putting it lightly. It's willfully ignored. They don't want to know about his state of mind or his character. They want to label him incompetent. And when he shows this kind of advanced critical thinking, which is like the opposite of incompetent, they have to find another way to pathologize it.
Exactly. To a biased ear, this isn't intelligence. It's being argumentative or evasive. He didn't give the simple answer, so he must be a problem. He has backed the evaluator into a corner with his intelligence, and now the evaluator is going to have to push back just to regain control.
And the pushback is so telling. After Michael gives this incredibly nuanced, thoughtful answer, the evaluator basically dismisses it all and tries to force him back into that yes or no box. It's obvious they're frustrated.
They are. This next bit is a masterclass in what happens when a checkbox filler meets a true critical thinker. Let's listen.
No, is the prosecutor supposed to be on your side?
Well, okay, all right, I'll answer it this way. The same way that when you asked me about the defense attorney, I said that the way that this country works, that, we have a certain legal system, we have a way that we do things, and that, whether or not the person is actually guilty or innocent, they have the right to have representation in these particular proceedings, and so that. So in that sense, I guess you could say that the defense attorney is on the side of who they're defending.
Yes.
If we're following that same line of thought, then I suppose you would look at it as, okay, if there's an opposing party here, I suppose the prosecutor would be on that opposing side.
You're right.
And there you have the evaluator pushing him, forcing the question. And Michael's answer is, well, it's philosophical. It's almost spiritual. I believe every prosecutor is on the side of every individual who is a good person. It's extraordinary.
He refuses to be cynical. I mean, he's basically being told, say the prosecutor is against you, and he comes back with this profound humanism. He won't reduce it to an adversarial game. He still believes in the fundamental goodness of people trying to do the right thing, even when the evidence in his own case screams otherwise.
He's making a distinction between the role and the ideal. He understands the prosecutor's role is adversarial in court, but he believes their ideal, their higher purpose, should be to serve justice for everyone. That is not a sign of incompetence. That is a sign of an incredibly sophisticated ethical framework.
And a framework the evaluator is completely incapable of understanding. Instead of seeing this as proof of a brilliant, morally grounded mind, they'll just see it as him not giving the, quote, correct answer. He's failing their test by being too principled.
And this is where the failure to investigate the PTSD-based defense becomes so egregious. A man with this moral clarity, suddenly forced under duress by a violent criminal, how would his mind process that? The conflict, the terror, that is the entire basis for a state of mind defense. But the evaluator is too busy trying to trip him up on basic legal definitions.
It's infuriating. He literally hands them the keys to understanding his psychology, his deep-seated belief in what's right, and they toss them aside because they don't fit into the stupid box on their form.
Now, the evaluator, clearly frustrated that Michael isn't taking the bait, decides to corner him in a different way. They try to pin him down on a specific piece of legal advice.
Yes, and Michael's response to this is just, It's a mic drop moment for his competency. Let's hear it.
But
They are not on your side. You can just say no. They are not on your side.
no, but that's not how I feel. It's not how I feel like it could go. You got to look at it it's a very nuanced question because, I'd like to think that, as somebody who respects the law and has always done his best to conduct himself lawfully, I respect it. I kind of tend to feel like every prosecutor is on the side of every individual who's a good person.
So, just to recap from the last clip, the evaluator tried to corner him and, well, that was the result. I don't even know what to call that. It's a philosophical treatise on the nature of good and evil in the justice system.
He completely transcends the question. Instead of giving the simple adversarial answer the evaluator wants, he reframes the entire discussion around a moral axis. It's an incredible display of abstract, ethical reasoning, the exact opposite of what you'd see in someone who is truly incompetent.
And it's so pure. His belief that prosecutors are ultimately on the side of every good person, it's just devastating when you contrast it with the reality of his situation. The actual bad person, in his case, Christopher Foster, was let go. Michael is the good person here, and the prosecutor is trying to destroy him.
And that internal conflict is the key. A competent evaluation would dig into that right there. Mr. Vega, you believe prosecutors protect good people, yet you feel you are a good person being wrongly prosecuted. How do you reconcile that? That question would open up everything about his state of mind, his trauma, his worldview.
And they don't want to open it up. They want to shut it down. This line of questioning, this entire evaluation, it's not about finding the truth. It's about building a case against Michael's sanity and his character. They're twisting his profound morality into something pathological.
They'll frame it as unrealistic or idealistic thinking, completely missing that it's the foundation of his character, a character that, under duress, would likely freeze or try to de-escalate, rather than act with criminal intent. They are actively ignoring the foundation for a temporary insanity defense.
It's appalling. And now, because Michael won't give them the simple yes or no they want, you can hear the frustration in the evaluator's voice. They try a different tactic.
Well, unfortunately, it's an adversarial court system, so you're right. Your defense attorney's on your side, but the job of the prosecutor is to prove that you did it. So they're on the opposite side. They're against you.
And there you have the evaluator's response to Michael's, his profound ethical philosophy. A blunt, condescending correction. It's not an inquiry. It's an indoctrination into cynicism.
It's infuriating. Unfortunately, she says. Unfortunately for whom? For her simplistic worldview? Michael offers this beautiful, complex perspective, and she just smacks it down with a law and order definition as if she's talking to a child.
A clinician's job is to understand the patient's subjective reality, not to beat them into submission with the adversarial system. This moment isn't just rude, it's a gross professional failure. They're actively refusing to explore his character.
And Michael he just lets it land. He doesn't argue. He doesn't get defensive. You can almost hear him realizing he's speaking a different language than his evaluator. That quiet acceptance isn't a lack of understanding. It's him strategically conserving his energy. It's resilience.
And by shutting down that conversation, the evaluator once again fails the second part of her job. Michael's firm belief in right and wrong is the key to arguing for temporary insanity. How would a man like that react to coercion? To having his walker thrown from the car? But they're not interested in that question.
Of course not. That would require actual work. It's so much easier to just declare his personal philosophy wrong and move down the checklist. He's not behaving like the stereotypical defendant, so they have to force him into that mold, even if it means ignoring his brilliance.
Exactly. So after dismissing his entire worldview, they pivot to a very practical and very loaded question.
Let's listen.
Okay, what is the job of the judge? What's the judge do?
The judge, I guess, I don't know if we're going to get into like a philosophical thing.
No. Just short, basic answers is all I need. What is the job of the judge?
Yeah, I would say that you know if the defense attorney is during these proceedings providing the best possible legal representation and counsel to the defendant, the prosecutor is advocating or fighting the case in the same respect on behalf of the state, or you then have like the middle,
Adjudicator?
Or the one that's trying to sort through things and assure the truth that comes out, and that both sides are treated fairly, equally, and not represented in a biased way, negatively or positively to the jury, if that's part of the equation.
Okay, that was... wow. He doesn't just define what a judge does. He gives this incredibly poignant speech about the judge's role as the guardian of truth, making sure the truth that comes out is all that matters. It's just so far beyond the scope of the question.
And did you hear him searching for the right word? Adjudicator. He knows the simple word judge, but he's reaching for a term that more precisely captures the function of impartiality. That is not a sign of confusion. It's a sign of a highly functioning, deeply precise intellect.
He's basically outlining what he needs from the system. He needs an impartial adjudicator because his entire case rests on exposing the lies and police failures that put him in that chair. He needs someone to stand in the middle and look at the facts. That Christopher Foster was misidentified and released. That Danielle Allen was mysteriously extracted from the scene.
Exactly. His definition of a judge is intrinsically linked to his own defense strategy. He's articulating a core legal need. But an evaluator biased toward a finding of incompetence would hear that nuance in those pauses not as thoughtfulness, but as hesitation or confusion.
He's pathologizing his intelligence. He's giving them lecture-level material on jurisprudence, and they're scoring it like a spelling test. Did he give the simple answer? No. Mark him down. It's absolutely perverse.
And once again, the failure to address the second purpose of the evaluation is glaring. A man with this much faith in a judge's ability to see the truth, how does that mindset, born from years of medical trauma and relying on doctors, inform his actions when confronted by a lawless criminal? Scornful. It's a goldmine of psychological insight that they are paving over with this simplistic Q&A.
It's a complete dereliction of duty. So after he aces yet another civics lesson, they pivot again.
Indeed. Let's hear how he wrestles with it.
Do you expect the judge to be fair in making those decisions?
I would argue that my life hinges upon it, yeah.
Following that lecture he gave on the role of a judge, the evaluator asks if he expects fairness, and his answer, it just cuts right through all the procedural nonsense. I would argue my life hinges upon it.
That statement it stops you in your tracks. He's not just saying yes to a question. He's laying bare the absolute stakes of this whole charade, his life. Not his freedom, not his reputation, his life.
And he's not being hyperbolic. As a triple amputee with a dislocated hip and that failed Phoenix implant, any prison sentence is an unconscionable price. Medically, he would not survive it. So when he says his life hinges on the judge's fairness, he is being 100% literal.
And the tone in his voice, it's so resolute. There's no self-pity, no whining. It's just a statement of fact. A fact that this evaluator seems completely incapable of grasping. For her, it's an abstract legal process. For him, It's survival. This is a moment where any responsible mental health professional would immediately pivot. Mr. Vega, that's a powerful statement. Can you tell me more about that? How does that fear for your life affect your thinking? That's how you evaluate state of mind. That's how you explore a PTSD defense.
But she doesn't do that. She just plows ahead with the script. It's like he handed her his exposed heart and she looked at it, went, huh, interesting, and then put it aside to ask another checkbox question. It's malpractice.
It is a profound deviation from professional standards. He has just articulated the core trauma that underlies this whole case, and she ignores it. This right here is grounds to have the entire evaluation thrown out. But it continues.
It does. And the next question, after he says his life is on the line, the pressure they're putting on him is immense.
And yet, his answer is a masterclass in legal and ethical reasoning. You have to hear this. Let's play the clip.
Now, if there's a jury, what's the job of a jury?
Yeah, exactly what I said when you mentioned there not being a jury.
Okay, so remind me, I didn't write that one down. Just what is their job?
To basically pass judgments, or to be the one that decides based on the facts that are presented, and in that case, oftentimes the judge will probably make it their goal to make sure that what's presented to the jury is fair, is a fair representation of things and isn't misleading or biased.
After he hits them with that incredibly powerful statement about his life hinging on the judge's fairness, they ask him about the role of the jury. And his answer, it's so brilliantly efficient, it's almost a quiet rebellion.
It is. He says exactly what I said when you mentioned there not being a jury. He's not being lazy or repetitive. He's making a high-level intellectual connection. He's saying the jury's job is the same as the judge's, to be an impartial arbiter of truth. He's refusing to play their game of simple, separate definitions.
Yes, he's creating a unified theory of justice right there in the interview. He's saying that everyone in that room with power, the judge, the jury, has the exact same sacred duty to find the facts and ensure fairness. He's applying his principled worldview consistently across the board.
And from a competency standpoint, it's checkmate. He's demonstrating memory, consistency, and abstract reasoning all in one sentence. It's concise, it's accurate, and it subtly points out the redundancy of the evaluator's own question.
But a biased evaluator won't see that, will they? They'll just hear a guy who didn't feel like answering the question. They'll see it as uncooperative. They are punishing him for being smarter and more efficient than them. They're pathologizing his clarity.
They will likely frame it as resistant, yes. And once again, they miss the bigger picture for the PTSD defense. A man who thinks this logically and consistently about justice would be profoundly disoriented when faced with pure lawlessness, with the chaos of Foster threatening him. But that door remains closed because the evaluator is stuck on their script. This next clip puts his core principles, his life or death medical situation, and the pressure of the system into direct conflict. Let's listen.
Do you expect the jury to be fair making their decision?
Oh, I mean, did the glove fit? Yeah, I tend to err on the side of having faith in the most
people.
Yeah, and yeah, I know you laugh, but and trust me, there's been times in my life where I've been wrong, but I tend to think that for the most part, the people are good and will judge right from wrong.
So after Michael links the judge and jury's roles, the evaluator asks if he expects the jury to be fair. And he starts with a pop culture reference and a bit of humor. Did the glove fit? I mean, that's not confusion. That's cultural literacy and intellectual agility.
I know. He makes a joke showing he's completely present and engaged, and then he pivots to one of the most profound statements yet. He says that, for the most part, people are good and will judge right from wrong. Even after everything, he has that faith.
And that is the core of his tragedy and his defense.
He is placing his faith in the collective moral judgment of 12 strangers to see the truth that the entire legal apparatus, the police, the prosecution, has willfully ignored. It's a profound statement of trust.
It's a trust he shouldn't have to have. He trusts that good people on a jury will see that he, a triple amputee, was coerced by a violent fugitive who the police mistakenly let go. He believes in right and wrong, even as he acknowledges that he has been wronged by the system. It's just devastatingly pure.
And this is precisely what a real evaluation would explore for a temporary insanity defense. You have a man with a childlike faith in goodness. What happens to his mind, to his rational thought, when he is confronted with pure, calculating evil in that car? And to this evaluator, it's just a quaint, naive answer to be noted and dismissed.
Exactly. They'll write it down as overly idealistic or lacks realistic grasp of adversarial system. They're taking his deepest character strength, this incredible humanism, and branding it as a cognitive defect because it doesn't fit their cynical model of a defendant.
This leads directly to the ultimate test of that faith.
And with his life literally on the line, this isn't a theoretical question. How he answers this tells us everything. Let's listen.
And what is your job in the courtroom during like a hearing or a trial? What are you supposed to do?
What is my job?
Well, what do you do when you go in court, basically?
I can't say I have very much experience. I would say that. I mean, well, what are we assuming? Are we assuming that I'm being charged with something?
So after he delivered that incredible statement of faith in the jury, they ask him, okay, what's your job in the courtroom? And his first answer, it isn't legalistic at all. It's just so pure.
Pure, that's the word for it. He's certainly taken aback by the question. You can hear it in his voice. Throughout the interview, it's been obvious that he's very principled about making sure he thinks before he speaks. So
when he's so caught off guard, he is mumbling his thoughts aloud. It's just one of those things you can't fake. The raw innocence and the benevolence. It's a heartwarming moment that, of course, the evaluator has to ruin with her spite.
Roll it.
Yeah, like if you're the defendant, what do you do when you go in the courtroom?
So if I'm the defendant, what do I do when I go in the courtroom? Show respect to everybody that's there, in particular the judge, in particular the jury, the members of the system, and it's really not something that should take very much thought. I mean, you go in there and it feels like somewhat of a trick question.
Most people just say they sit there. I think you're overthinking them.
You're overthinking it. She actually said that after he gave this profound ethical answer about showing respect. She tells him his intelligence is the problem. Most people just say they sit there. My God, she's coaching him to be simpler, less competent.
It's a stunning moment of professional malpractice. She's not a clinician. She's a traffic cop demanding a simple answer when faced with a complex reality. The term overthinking doesn't belong in a clinical evaluation. It's a judgment, a dismissal of the subject's entire cognitive process.
And listen as she keeps going with it.
You're just overthinking it. Yeah. People just say, I sit there. That's fine.
That's a damn shame.
But think about the staggering irony, Tom. He's the one who's been shown zero respect by the system. They misidentified Foster, let Danielle Allen walk away, yet his first thought is how he can show respect to them. The dignity of this man is just bottomless.
I agree, Juliana. It's hard to listen to a lot of this. And in case there were any doubts, let me be clear. That response he just gave was a foundational statement of character, not a strategic one. His primary duty in his own mind isn't tactical, it's moral. It's to honor the process. And in terms of competence, it shows a profound understanding of courtroom decorum and the seriousness of the situation.
Right. She's literally labeling the evidence for his state of mind defense as a personality flaw. It's systemic gaslighting in a clinical setting. Luckily, he's familiar with clinical settings, however, because as you'll hear next, you can tell he gets it. He's navigating their incompetence.
Precisely. He's, well, adapting to his evaluator's limitations, which is yet another sign of his high-level cognitive functioning. Let's listen to how he gives them exactly what they want, but still with his own intelligent spin.
Yeah, this gets good.
What would be an example of a piece of evidence they might collect at a crime scene? I cannot use your case, so think like bank robbery, murder scene.
The identities of the individuals that were there.
You know, after that last exchange where the evaluator was so dismissive, she tries to throw him what she thinks is a simple, neutral question. It's a classic test, but Michael's response is anything but simple.
Simple? It was a laser beam. I mean, she gives him the softball hypothetical about a bank robbery and says, give me an example of evidence. And he doesn't say a gun or fingerprints or, a getaway car. He immediately says the identities of the individuals that were there. Mic drop.
It's legally brilliant. It's so much more sophisticated than a concrete object. He's identifying the most fundamental piece of evidence in any crime. Who is responsible? And in doing so, he is, without breaking her rule, making a powerful statement about the central injustice of his own case.
He's screaming it at her without saying a word. His entire defense hinges on the fact that the authorities failed to properly identify the county's #1 most wanted man. They let him walk away, and they let his girlfriend just vanish. So when he says the most important evidence is identities, he is telling the evaluator, you are missing the whole point.
It is a profound act of assisting in his own defense, which is a core tenet of competency. He's using her hypothetical to highlight the systemic failure that has corrupted his entire case. He's fighting back with pure intellect.
And a competent evaluator would have picked up on that, right? They'd see the subtext. They would note, subject displays a sophisticated, abstract understanding of evidence directly relevant to his own defense posture. But she just moves on.
She has no idea what just happened. She likely wrote down, subject provided an adequate example, and checked her box. She's utterly oblivious to the masterclass in legal strategy he just delivered. It's a complete failure to assess his actual cognitive abilities.
And it completely fails the second part of her job, too. A man that focused on the injustice of identity, of being framed, that speaks volumes about the psychological trauma he's endured. But they're not interested in his mind, only in his compliance.
He's proven he's more than competent, but his intelligence is so inconvenient for them. It keeps getting in the way of their simple narrative.
And right after this, she exposes her own incompetence. I mean, you would think the absolute bare minimum for this job is to read the defendant's file, right? But what she asks him next is just, it's staggering.
It's malpractice. And you can hear in Michael's voice the exact moment he realizes the person deciding his fate knows absolutely nothing about his year-long ordeal. It's heartbreaking. Let's listen.
Yeah, I don't know where you are in the process. They don't tell me that. So,
okay.
No. So have you done that part where you said, put in a plea?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you did not guilty?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the possible sentence if you were found guilty on your charge?
Yeah.
They don't tell me that either, but sometimes they tell you in court. I don't keep them all in my head. So do you know the possible sentence?
No, I'm just surprised how little they tell you about me.
No, they hand me a police report. That's it. That's all I get.
Oh, so you did get the police report.
I have a police report, but that doesn't tell me anything about your court process.
Sure.
So
okay, excellent.
I have no words. They hand me a police report. That's it. She just confessed right there to the most profound professional failure. This isn't just an oversight, it's a complete dereliction of her duty.
It's malpractice, Juliana. Plain and simple. A competency evaluation requires a review of collateral information, the court docket, medical history, legal filings. By her own admission, her entire understanding of this man's life-altering legal battle comes from a single, deeply flawed police report.
And you can hear Michael's heart just break in that moment. That line, "I'm just surprised how little they tell you about me." It's delivered with such genuine sadness. He's not a case file. He's a human being sitting in front of her, realizing that to her, he's a complete stranger whose fate she's about to decide.
But then you hear that shift. Once she confirms it's only the police report, Michael's sadness turns into something else. He's processing a critical piece of information. He now knows that her entire perspective is built on the so-called Becker contagion. The document she's holding is the one that erases the county's most wanted man from the scene and leaves Michael holding the bag.
Exactly. His tone changes completely. That excellent at the end, that's not agreement. That's him understanding, so you have the script, the one where I'm the villain. Got it. He just learned the game is even more rigged than he thought.
It invalidates the entire proceeding. She cannot possibly assess his PTSD defense without medical records, and she cannot assess his competency to stand trial without knowing the year-long history of that trial. Her evaluation is worthless.
And yet, it's not over. After admitting she knows nothing about his case, his sentence, or his history, she then pivots to one of the most cynical questions you can ask a defendant.
It's an incredible turn. From a place of total ignorance, she decides to probe his moral character. She asks him why someone, anyone, wouldn't just give up and accept a plea deal. His answer is something she is clearly not prepared for. Let's hear that.
So, not necessarily you, but why would someone want to do a plea bargain? What would be a good reason to accept a plea bargain or a plea deal?
I guess if to avoid having to go through all the entire process.
Yes.
The whole.
Okay, and why would someone not want to take a plea deal? Like you said, they got to plead guilty to something to then get that agreed upon sentence. Why would someone not want to do that?
If they believe that doing so would be less fair than going to trial.
Okay. Do you know how you want to handle your case yet? Like, I don't know if they've offered you a plea deal or if you're already wanting to take it to trial or anything like that. Do you know any of that yet?
Like I've said the whole time, I place a lot of weight on the judge in particular, and the system as a whole. I have a lot of faith in it. I feel like for the most part, I trust in their ability to render a verdict fairly.
Okay. Couple more. We're almost done with these.
So, after establishing that she knows almost nothing about his case, the evaluator launches into a very standard, almost cynical line of questioning about plea bargains. It's a test of pragmatism, really.
But Michael doesn't give a pragmatic answer, does he? I mean, when she asks why someone wouldn't take a deal, he doesn't say, because I'm innocent. He says, if they believe that doing so would be less fair than going to trial. He's not talking about guilt. He's talking about justice. It's such a principled, philosophical response.
It's the response of a deeply rational person. And it leads directly to the most remarkable moment in this entire evaluation, in my opinion. When she asks about his own case, he expresses this profound faith in the judge and the system as a whole.
It's just heartbreaking to hear.
This man who has been chewed up and betrayed by this very system, the police who let the real culprit go, the prosecutors who are scapegoating him, the evaluator who can't be bothered to read his file, still says, I trust in their ability to render a verdict fairly. How can the system be worthy of that kind of faith?
Legally speaking, Juliana, that statement is the very definition of competency. He understands the role of the judge. He respects the process. He believes in the possibility of a fair outcome. He is not paranoid or delusional. He is the ideal defendant, ready and willing to place his fate in the hands of the court.
And the evaluator's response to this beautiful, profound statement of principle? Okay, couple more. We're almost done with these. Sarcastic. She hears a man bearing his soul, and all she hears is a box being checked on her form. It's just malpractice.
She completely misses it. She has no idea that he just handed her the key to his entire character. He is a man of principle, which makes the injustice done to him even more horrifying.
It's unbelievable. He's basically laid his entire worldview at her feet. He's showing her exactly who he is, a man of principle.
And having established his character so clearly, he then prepares to do something he hasn't been allowed to do this entire time.
Excited. He's about to tell his story. For the first time, we're going to hear his own account of what actually happened during the incident, the duress he was under. It's incredibly powerful. Let's listen.
Leading up to that evening, things were fine.
Things were fine? Okay.
Yeah, it was, everything was a typical day. And things became terrifying quickly.
So after they press him on his principles versus taking a plea, it sounds like he decides to take them back to the beginning. He's not just answering their questions anymore. He's trying to give them the context they are so clearly missing.
It's a remarkably competent move. He's establishing a baseline. He's deliberately painting a picture of a typical day where things were fine. Legally, that's critical. He's establishing his non-criminal state of mind before the events were forced upon him. He's showing there was no pre-existing intent.
And the pivot, it's just chilling. He goes from a typical day to, and then things became terrifying quickly. The way he says it, so calm, so clear, it underscores the suddenness of the trauma. 1 minute he's a guy living his life, the next he's in a hostage situation.
This is the moment of inception for the entire psychological legal defense. This is what a state of mind evaluation is for. A competent evaluator would spend the next hour unpacking that one sentence. Things became terrifying quickly. What did that terror feel like? What did you think? What were you afraid of? It opens the door to duress, coercion, PTSD.
But we know they're not going to do that, don't we? He lays out the stark before and after of his trauma, demonstrating perfect linear memory and incredible emotional control, and all this evaluator hears is a narrative to be checked against a police report we already know is flawed.
It's a dual failure of spectacular proportions. They are failing to see the competence in his clear, cogent storytelling, while simultaneously failing to see the goldmine of evidence for a temporary insanity defense that he's handing them on a silver platter.
He literally just told them when the criminal mindset took over the car, and it wasn't his. He's drawing a bright line, and the evaluator's response to this crucial testimony is, well, it's just as bad as you'd expect.
They completely ignore this narrative opening and try to drag him back into another hypothetical trap. The disregard is astounding. Let's play the next part.
They're being what I would assume, what I know to be people under the influence.
They were?
Yeah, and ultimately, I ended up kind of saying, "Hey, I should drive home. I should drive the vehicle." Shortly thereafter.
You can do that?
Yeah, I got my driver's license when I was 15 and a half.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just making sure.
I've had it ever since.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is one of those moments that is just so incredibly revealing. Michael is setting the scene. He's explaining that he was being the responsible one, the designated driver, because his companions were under the influence. And the very first thing she asks is, "You can do that, okay?"
It's a shocking question. It's not about the situation or the other people or his decision-making. It's raw, unvarnished ableism. Her immediate reaction is one of disbelief that a triple amputee could possibly operate a vehicle.
Exactly. It's so mean-spirited. And then she laughs, just making sure of what? That the man with a valid driver's license for over a decade is capable of driving? You would never, ever ask that question to an able-bodied person. It's pure discrimination.
And it's a profound display of evaluator bias. Her job is to assess his mental state, but she can't see past his physical body. She's not listening to the content of his story, which is about his sound judgment. She's judging him based on her own prejudice. This single moment should disqualify her entire evaluation.
And I just love his response. There's no anger, just this, humble pride. Yeah, I got my driver's license when I was 15 and a half. I've had it ever since. He spent his whole life answering questions like that, and he just meets it with grace.
It speaks volumes about his character, but it's also a critical moment that the evaluator completely misses. Michael is establishing the baseline for the entire incident. He was in control, acting responsibly, trying to prevent a worse outcome. That context is vital for understanding the duress that followed, but she's already dismissed him.
She's not interested in the context. She's looking for deficits, and if she can't find them in his mind, she'll invent them based on his body.
So, he's established the scene. He's the responsible party, driving his intoxicated acquaintances home. Everything is, for the moment, under his control.
But that's all about to change. In the very next moment, flashing lights appear in the rearview mirror and the situation escalates dramatically. Let's hear that part.
I begin driving, and shortly thereafter, an officer turns on his lights behind me as though to pull me over.
Okay.
So I pulled the vehicle over, and that's when things got, I guess, violent.
You mean? So you pulled over?
Yeah. I pulled over.
Okay.
And
why did you pull over?
Because there was an officer behind me with his lights on.
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to do.
That's what you're supposed to do, right?
Sure.
So right here, Michael provides what is probably the single most important fact for his entire defense. He says, "I pulled the vehicle over." His immediate action when he sees the police lights is to comply with the law. That is his baseline intent.
And the evaluator she can't seem to process it. What do you mean, so you pulled over? And then she asks, why did you pull over? I'm sorry, is that a trick question? It's one of the most absurd things I've ever heard.
It's a question that reveals a profound bias. She is so primed to see him as a non-compliant criminal that his perfectly normal, law-abiding action seems suspicious to her.
She's looking for the crime, and she can't find it.
And then she laughs at him. He gives the only sane answer in the world, because there was an officer behind me with his lights on, and that's what you're supposed to do. And she laughs. She treats his basic understanding of civic duty like it's a child's answer. It's so demeaning.
And in her fixation on why he would possibly obey the law, she misses the most critical thing he said. He gave her the entry point to the entire story. He says, that's when things got, I guess, violent. A competent evaluator would have immediately zeroed in on that. Violent how? Who was violent?
But she just blows right past it because, the violence doesn't fit her checklist. It complicates the simple narrative she got from the police report. The report says he fled, so why is he talking about pulling over and things getting violent? It doesn't compute for her.
And this failure is catastrophic for both purposes of the evaluation. She ignores clear evidence of his competency, his rational decision to pull over, and she completely shuts down the inquiry into his state of mind by refusing to ask about the moment the duress and trauma actually began.
He's trying to give her the truth, but she only wants answers that fit her pre-written story. He's trying to tell her he had the will to comply, but not the means.
Exactly. He had the intent, but he didn't have full control over the vehicle.
Let's keep listening as he continues elaborating on the state of affairs within the confines of the vehicle as tensions hit their all-time high. It's hard to hear, Tom. It really is.
Okay, so you pulled over.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
The lady in the car proceeded to grab the wheel and grab the shifter and demand that I drive.
Oh, wait. She grabbed the wheel and the shifter, and what'd she do?
Started screaming.
Oh.
Yeah.
And did what? And what?
Just maniacally, almost. I mean, it was terrible.
Okay, so what did you do then?
And this is also who I find out is Chris Foster. Basically, they told me to drive the car, go. That in fact we can't go through with this traffic stop. I was kind of blindsided. I mean, I saw no reason. Turns out, I mean, they basically were very afraid of, or
police.
Yeah. I guess not trying to, I guess, deal with any sort of police, and so I.
You can literally hear the trauma in his voice here. I mean, the moment he starts to describe what happened after he pulled over, his entire vocal quality changes. He's catching his breath. He starts to stutter. He is reliving this.
It's a classic trauma response. A competent trauma-informed evaluator would recognize those signs immediately, the dysregulated breathing, the verbal disfluencies, and would proceed with caution. But what does this evaluator do? She interrupts him with a skeptical, "Oh, wait."
That interruption is so hostile. He's just begun to describe the violence, how Danielle Allen grabbed the wheel, and she cuts him off. He then tries to explain the terror of the moment, that she was screaming maniacally, and the evaluator just steamrolls him with a procedural, "Okay, so what did you do then?"
She has no interest in his subjective experience of fear. She doesn't ask, "How did that feel?" or "What were you thinking?" She wants a simple, mechanical description of his actions, completely stripped of the context of duress. This is a catastrophic failure in assessing his state of mind.
He's fighting through a visible, audible trauma response to tell her that the county's #1 most wanted man is in his car, telling him to drive, and her only contribution is to helpfully supply the word police? I mean, the lack of empathy is just staggering.
And what's so vital here is that this moment is Exhibit A for his entire PTSD defense. He is demonstrating the symptoms for her in real time. Her failure to note it, to explore it, to show even a shred of clinical curiosity is malpractice. She is actively ignoring the very evidence she was hired to find.
He's trying to explain the who and the why of the situation. Who was threatening him and why he was so terrified, but she's just not listening.
Exactly. And now he's about to give her the how. He's going to explain a crucial mechanical detail about that specific vehicle that made it physically easy for them to seize control from him.
It's such a critical piece of the puzzle, showing how his ability to resist was completely neutralized. Let's hear it.
So she had her hand on the shifter of the car, and one thing about me and driving is that you know how a lot of shifters, they might have the button in the front or they'll have the button on top. So all the cars I've ever had, I've always tried to make sure that it was either the old style shifters on the column. They're the easiest for me. But what I'm getting at is that this particular vehicle, the button was like in the front of the shifter. And so it was just one of those things where it was extremely difficult for me to kind of work by myself, and extremely easy for somebody else to, well, when you're not, when you're not being threatened by somebody, they're pretty quick to just shift it in the park, shift it in the drive. Now she had control over it, and I was told to take off.
This is, from a legal standpoint, an absolutely critical piece of testimony. He's not just saying they made me do it. He is providing a specific, mechanical, and verifiable explanation for how he was physically overpowered. This is the foundation of a duress defense.
And it's so incredibly detailed. This is the mind of a man who has spent a lifetime having to analyze the ergonomics of the world just to navigate it. Most people don't even think about where the button on a gear shifter is. For him, it's a matter of function versus non-function.
Exactly. And his captors, Foster and Allen, absolutely exploited that. This is what we've called the calculated disablement. They knew his physical limitations. The design of that specific car, which made the shifter hard for him to use but easy for them to grab, became a weapon against him.
The irony is just staggering, isn't it? He's using his incredibly capable analytical mind to describe the precise mechanics of how his body was rendered powerless. He is, right here, proving his mental competence by explaining his physical vulnerability.
And any competent evaluator would recognize that. This is a man who can clearly articulate cause and effect, who can recall specific details under pressure, and who is actively assisting in his own defense. He's laying out the case for his own innocence with remarkable clarity.
He literally says, now she had control over it, and I was told to take off. I mean, what more do you need to hear? He is now, for all intents and purposes, a hostage. His agency has been stripped away.
He is no longer the driver. He is an instrument. But what's so incredible, and what we're about to hear, is that even in this moment of absolute terror, with his life on the line, his first thought is to protect someone else.
He's worried about the police officer. His captors order him to wait until the officer is right at the door to take off, to maximize the danger. But Michael makes a choice, a truly heroic one. Let's listen.
She screamed at me, something along the lines of, when the officer gets to the window, go. And to me, that felt like the most, outrageous. Or like, I mean, you know how easy it is to for an officer, I don't know, to get clipped by a car, or to his foot to get, you could perhaps kill somebody,
Yeah.
You can, so just in that moment when she said to do that, the reason why she was kind of telling me is because I'm assuming that from where she was, she couldn't see perhaps in my mirror. I'm in my mirror. So I was the one who had to kind of decide to go when the cop made it to the car, and I took that moment, and just in the moment I looked at it as an opportunity for me to, as crazy as it sounds, save the officer, or at least make sure that, mitigate the chances of him potentially getting
hit.
Yeah. And for a moment, I almost considered it somewhat of a small victory to know that at least no matter what, he did not get hurt.
My God, Tom, he refuses. He prioritizes the officer's life over his own immediate safety.
This is profound. It is a selfless act of heroism under extreme duress.
He is being threatened by a wanted fugitive, but his moral calculus in that split second is to protect the officer from getting clipped by a car. From a legal standpoint, this is the single most powerful piece of evidence establishing his pro-social mindset and total lack of criminal intent.
It's everything. Any argument they have that he was a willing participant completely evaporates with that one decision. This triple amputee, held captive, is the only one in that car trying to protect law enforcement. It's an incredible display of character.
And this is where the dual purpose of the evaluation is so critical. For competency, he is demonstrating complex ethical reasoning under unimaginable pressure. For the state of mind defense, this act of selfless heroism establishes the mind that was then violated. The trauma of being forced to act against this core character trait is the entire basis for a temporary insanity plea.
But a biased evaluator hears that, and what do they write down? Subject reports refusing initial command before complying. They're stripping it of all its moral and psychological weight. They're turning an act of heroism into a footnote about initial non-compliance.
It's clinical malpractice. A real evaluation would identify this as the central nexus of his character and trauma. Instead, they're paving the way to ignore it, to treat him as just another guy who fled from the cops, which is the farthest thing from the truth.
This moment of heroic defiance is, of course, met with even greater force. This is where Christopher Foster makes it clear that Michael has no choice at all. What he says next is absolutely terrifying.
The threat becomes explicit and personal. This is the turning point where even the pretense of choice is gone. Let's listen.
I kind of mentioned that it was like 5 months, after they activated the implant in my leg, and I was back to using my walker full time. I guess my walker would, I consider like almost an extension of me.
Yes, that makes sense.
Insofar as that's those are like my legs, I guess you could say. And because I told him I said something like, well, you can't run from the police. You know what I mean? It's just, life is not a Grand Theft Auto game. And he threw it out of the vehicle and made a comment, something along the lines of, if I can't run, well then neither can you.
And there it is. Right after Michael poignantly describes the walker as an extension of me, he recounts what Foster said as he threw it from the car. The statement is the very definition of psychological warfare.
If I can't run, then neither can you. It's bone-chilling. That's not just a threat, it's a declaration of ownership. Foster is literally binding him to him by destroying his only means of escape. It's a calculated act of pure evil.
This is the absolute core of the duress defense. The will of any person, let alone a person with Michael's profound physical vulnerabilities, would be shattered at that moment. The choice was removed. This statement proves it was a kidnapping, not a joyride.
And the way Michael recounts it, so steady, so clear, it's just incredible. He's reliving the moment his freedom was stolen, the moment he was psychologically crippled, and he does it with such fortitude. This is the evidence that should set him free, not be used against him.
And this is precisely the tragic irony of this evaluation. His clarity in describing this horrific memory proves his competence. But the memory itself, the terror, the specific calculated cruelty, is the entire basis for a state of mind defense. They are missing the forest for the trees.
They're not just missing it, they're willfully ignoring it. An evaluator hears that and their report should scream duress, coercion, victim. But we know this report won't say that. It will say subject recounts suspect statements and move on. It's a grotesque failure. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the evaluator would be not only more professional, but more compassionate and empathetic, especially after hearing what Michael has to say next.
This part brought a tear to my eye when I first heard it. Let's listen.
I recall growing up so many times, I know at one point in time, I believe I spent 9 or 10 months in the same bed, and I remember watching. I remember every day noticing at some point like that the sun tended to move each day in the sky, and I remember coming to the conclusion that, oh wow, looks like there's a chance that if I wait long, if I'm here long enough, eventually when the sun comes up, it'll come up in the window. There's where the window is at. I remember looking forward to it, and it turns out, as I understand a little more now, at some point the sun stops moving and it starts going back. I remember it kind of made it almost right to that window, and then that must have been, I don't know, whatever time of the year, and then
What happened though?
Whoa, hold on. Pause. Stop the audio for a sec. Did she just cut him off, saying back to what happened, though?
Sadly, she did, as if she wasn't even listening to anything he was saying. But he stands his ground, though. Hit play. Keep listening.
No, I'm getting to that. This whole thing kind of became somewhat of a theme in life, as far as being unable to resist when things become scary, and realizing that sometimes the easiest way to, or not, and it's not about easy, but it's about the least painful, or the least, it's not fight, it's not flight. I can't fight, I can't move, I can't. So you kind of learn to freeze and appease, and this is a very common, well-known thing with regards not to war or combat informed PTSD, but pediatric medically informed PTSD. And I'm sorry. Back to answer your question fully. That when you look at it in that context, and I have to say that's the exact truth of it.
This is the whole story right here. This beautiful, just heartbreaking parable of the son. Can you even imagine being a child pinned to a bed for the better part of a year, and your entire world, your only hope becomes watching the path of the sun get a little closer to your window each day? The purity of that single wish.
What's so profound about that story, Juliana, is the powerlessness inherent in it. His hope wasn't tied to something he could do. He couldn't work harder to make the sun arrive. His only role was to endure, to wait, and to have faith. It's a perfect metaphor for his entire life as a medical patient, completely at the mercy of forces beyond his control.
And the specific tragedy of it, it's the almost. It's not that the sun was always distant. It's that it got so close. He could, taste it. The hope became real, tangible, and then the fundamental nature of the universe just turned it away. How do you learn to trust in hope after that? After your one wish is dangled right in front of you and then just reverses course.
And that experience, that foundational lesson from his childhood is the origin story for the psychological principle he then explains with such, clarity. When you learn at your very core that you cannot fight your circumstances and you cannot flee your own body, you develop a third survival skill.
Freeze and appease. It's the key to everything. And to think the evaluator tried to cut him off while he was explaining this. It's a brief moment, but it shows she was so unprepared for the depth of what he was offering her.
He had to push past her to deliver what is essentially expert testimony on his own condition. He doesn't just name it, he correctly identifies it as a hallmark of pediatric medically informed PTSD. He has done the intellectual work to turn his suffering into self-knowledge. He's doing her job for her, and frankly, he's doing it better.
It's just breathtaking, really. He's not speaking with bitterness or self-pity. He's speaking as an analyst of his own life, connecting the dots from that little boy in the bed to the man in the car. It just shows this incredible strength of character that he's still here, still fighting, still trying to make people understand.
He had to become his own expert witness because the expert in the room was failing so profoundly.
So he's just laid bare his soul and explained his core survival instinct: freeze and appease, to become still and try to placate the threat. It's how he survived childhood.
And he's about to describe the ultimate test of that instinct, a moment where he was trapped between two threats, the armed fugitive behind him and the police officers surrounding his car, and had to decide which was the greater danger. It's an impossible choice. Let's listen.
Who do I fear? What do I fear more? The guy behind me, I believe, armed, threatening me, and essentially holding me hostage. I mean, holding me hostage insofar as what choice. What I mean, I can't leave. He threw my walker out of the vehicle. And this is documented. This is not. This is, or stop the vehicle and pray that the police don't jump to some sort of conclusion and start shooting or something. So
So after they completely ignore his explanation for his trauma response, Michael, to his credit, tries to bring them back to the reality of the incident. He explains the impossible choice he was facing in that moment.
It's a Sophie's choice. I mean, can you imagine? He's weighing the fear of the armed man, Foster right behind him, threatening him, against his fear that if he makes one wrong move, the police will jump to some sort of conclusion and start shooting. He's trapped between two potentially lethal outcomes. The law has a name for this: an unconscionable choice. When you are placed in a situation with no good options, where any choice leads to harm, the standard for rational decision-making is different. It's the very definition of duress. His will is completely overborne.
And it's a classic PTSD response, that hypervigilance, that fear of authority jumping to the worst conclusion. It's magnified by his lifetime of powerlessness in medical settings. He's terrified of both the criminal and the system, and this evaluator is going to use that fear to claim he was simply scared of being caught?
It proves the intellectual bankruptcy of their approach. His ability to articulate this impossible ethical dilemma proves he is competent. But the dilemma itself, being forced to choose the lesser of two terrors, is the entire argument for a temporary insanity or duress defense. They are pathologizing sanity under pressure.
And in that impossible moment, he's still thinking about the officers. He's trying to prevent a shootout. He's choosing which danger to face based on who else might get hurt. It's profoundly noble.
He's caught between the immediate threat from Foster and the statistical threat of a police misunderstanding.
You have to hear this.
I kind of realized, I really don't have much of a choice here, but I do have a little bit of power over one thing, and that's I have the choice as to whether or not I floor it and just recklessly, or whether I at least try to maintain some semblance of awareness as to the innocent people around. And I did my best to do that, with regards to just, it sounds kind of counterintuitive. I know that, somebody might be in a position where they're in a pursuit, quote, or running from the police, quote, but yet not trying to get away. But that's kind of, that's really what I kind of tried to do there.
And it gets even more complex. After explaining that impossible choice, he then describes his internal monologue during the chase. It's just extraordinary.
It's incredible. The hesitations, the you hear in his voice, that's not confusion. That is the sound of a man reliving a profound moral conflict. He's being forced to drive recklessly, but his primary concern, even under threat, is trying to maintain some semblance of awareness to protect innocent people around. Who does that?
A person with zero criminal intent. A prosecutor will stand up in court and say, he drove recklessly. But Michael is providing the context that completely negates that legal element. The recklessness was forced, and his actual mindset was a desperate attempt to mitigate that recklessness. This is exculpatory evidence of the highest order.
This is a man whose body is already a challenge to control, with the dislocated prosthetic hip, the amputations, and yet he is using every ounce of his focus while being terrorized to try and keep other people safe. The prosecution wants to call him reckless. They should be giving him a medal.
And this is the core failure here. His ability to weigh these complex ethics, his safety, the public safety, the orders from his captor, all in real time, that demonstrates a level of cognitive function that is the polar opposite of incompetence. But the situation itself, being forced to endanger others against his will, is the very definition of a traumatic event that could trigger a temporary break from sanity.
So the very evidence of his good character and clear mind is being ignored, and the context of his trauma is being dismissed. It's a perfect catch-22. He's too competent to be incompetent, but too traumatized for them to admit he was a victim.
You'd imagine that after hearing a person describe a profound moral crisis like that, the evaluator would, follow up, ask about that internal conflict. But instead, she pivots to a completely different topic, showing she wasn't absorbing any of it.
And yet, as you'll hear next, Michael remains committed to relaying his truth, his testimony to her, despite her apparent indifference.
He's too principled to lower himself to her level. He's willing to be vulnerable for the sake of providing an uncorrupted narrative. Listen.
And upon stopping the vehicle, I immediately just hung out the window and attempted to kind of just, at that point, I'm just kind of putting my life in God's hands and hoping that they don't, try shooting at the vehicle, and thank God that they didn't, although for a moment I didn't know, and during those couple of moments I would have to say that those I can't even exactly, I don't even like to talk about them or think about just the whole fear of the guy in the back seat versus the fear of these officers potentially thinking that I'm a threat to them, and releasing dogs or shooting at me.
And after all that, after he perfectly described the moral tightrope he was walking to protect innocent people, Michael brings them back to the end of the chase.
He does. And he describes the final moment of decision, the instant the chase ends. And his description of his mindset is, well, it's not a legal or tactical one, it's spiritual.
He says he stopped the car and immediately put his life in God's hands. That just gave me chills. I mean, think about the level of terror and helplessness you have to feel to completely surrender your fate, not to the police, not to your captor, but to God. He's given up on finding any safety in the human world.
That is the ultimate evidence of his will being overborne. He is no longer trying to calculate a way out. He has reached the end of his agency. This is a profound act of spiritual surrender from a man who sees no other options. It's the psychological endpoint of coercion.
And this is maybe the clearest evidence yet for his state of mind defense. He wasn't thinking like a criminal trying to get away with something. He was thinking like a profoundly traumatized victim hoping for divine intervention. But what will this evaluator write? Subject reports religious ideations upon apprehension. They will pathologize his faith.
They will medicalize a moment of profound spiritual crisis because they are completely incapable of seeing the human being in front of them. His eloquent description of his faith proves he's competent, but the act of faith itself proves his mindset was one of utter desperation, not criminal intent. They miss both points.
So Michael puts his fate in God's hands. But the two other people in that car, Danielle Allen and Christopher Foster, they have a very different plan. And what the system does next is the final betrayal.
Exactly. Let's listen.
And then
They arrested you, yeah?
Yeah, and that's
But you said they let you go to your mom?
I mean, it became pretty evident. Like I said, everything I just told you is exactly, so it became pretty evident pretty quickly what that maybe I wasn't exactly the
Perpetrator?
You're right, or at least the threat to them.
The perpetrator, Michael, after everything he's just told them, and his answer is so perfect, that pause. And then he says he wasn't exactly the perpetrator. It's not defiance, it's genuine confusion. It's like he can't compute the word being applied to him.
It's a classic example of cognitive dissonance. His lived reality as a victim, as a hostage, is so complete that the label perpetrator is fundamentally incompatible with his experience. From a legal perspective, that rejection of the label is powerful evidence of his mindset. He wasn't culpable.
He wasn't the perpetrator because Christopher Foster was, the man the police on scene somehow misidentified as some random guy named Ed Becker and let walk away. Foster is the county's #1 most wanted, and they let him go. It's insanity.
This isn't an evaluation, it's a confirmation bias exercise.
It's so cruel. He's maintaining his innocence not as a legal strategy, but because it's the fundamental truth of his experience. His mind cannot accept the lie, and they're going to label that as uncooperative or delusional.
His refusal to accept that label is a direct challenge to her entire narrative. A competent clinician would see that dissonance and explore it. They'd ask, why don't you see yourself that way?
But of course she doesn't do that. She takes his thoughtful, truthful answer and twists it into something else entirely. What she says next is just, it's a masterclass in incompetence. Let's play it.
It was just, I was gonna say, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you kind of stated this already, but you knew you wanted to pull over, but kind of felt that it was wrong to like run from the police.
So, yeah.
But you felt you didn't have a choice?
I did pull over.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I did.
Yeah.
And it was upon pulling over that all of a sudden I realized I was with not just one monster but two. I mean, this is I'm talking about unconscionable. I mean.
And they threatened you and threw your walker out, correct?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then, on top of then finding out in the following weeks that this is posted online as Jabula's #1 most wanted.
Really?
Yeah, really. I know his name won't appear anywhere in those police reports, but it's the whole crux behind this case. It's not.
Well, they arrested him too, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, you did.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't know I don't know what they did.
Oh, okay.
It feels like it just keeps haunting me, and I just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear the absolute weight of this entire ordeal in his voice. He's catching his breath. He's audibly exhausted. This is the sound of a man who has been forced to walk through the worst night of his life, step by step, for an evaluator who has shown him nothing but suspicion and coldness. He just sounds broken.
He is. But even in this state of complete emotional and physical exhaustion, he is still fighting to make her understand. This single exchange, Juliana, is where all the threads of this case, all the injustices we've been talking about, they all converge.
It's like he's making one last stand. She tries to put words in his mouth, framing it as him feeling conflicted, but he just cuts right through it with the simple truth. I did pull over. That's the first thing I did. He won't let her rewrite his actions.
And that's when he says it. I realized I was with not just one monster, but two. I mean, I'm talking about unconscionable. In that one moment, he gives her the human reality that the entire legal system has been trying to bury.
And she reduces it to a line on her clipboard. And they threatened you and threw your walker out, correct? She hears unconscionable evil, and she responds with a fact check. That moment when they threw his walker, that was the calculated disablement we talked about. That was the moment they physically and symbolically sealed his fate, telling him, you cannot run, you cannot fight, you are ours. To her, it's just a detail.
And then Michael gives her the entire case. He says his name won't appear anywhere in those police reports, but it's the whole crux behind this case. He is, right there, describing the Becker contagion, the system's original sin, the lie that started this whole nightmare by letting Christopher Foster, the county's #1 most wanted, walk away.
And the evaluator's response, well, they arrested him too, right? It's just, her ignorance is stunning. She's so deep inside the system's flawed narrative that she can't even fathom that they just let the monster go.
Her question proves the success of the scapegoat gambit. The system's narrative works. It successfully hid its own catastrophic failure and created a story where Michael Vega was the only one left to blame. He's fighting against a ghost story, and she doesn't even know it's a ghost story.
And that's why it haunts him. That final line, it feels like it just keeps haunting me, It takes you right back to the boy in the bed, watching the sun. It's the same feeling, a trauma that never ends, a hope that's always just out of reach, a system that promises fairness but delivers only pain.
He gave her everything. The facts, the timeline, the psychological context, the names of the legal theorems his own lawyers would later argue. He did it all himself, even through tears. He was his own best advocate.
He bared his soul. He laid the entire unconscionable truth at her feet. And her final response to him, the last words of this so-called professional evaluation, they're the most chilling and revealing of all.
It's the final callous joke that proves she never saw him as a human being at all. Let's listen to the very end.
Look forward to it.
Hopefully you won't see me again. That means you'd be in trouble again.
No.
Hopefully not.
Never that.
Hopefully not. There's a rare chance that they subpoena me for court and all that kind of stuff as like an expert witness, but it doesn't happen too often. So who knows? Well, I don't know that part yet, but usually they'll just use my reports. So hopefully you won't see me again.
So after Michael pours his heart out, after he describes this haunting, you'd expect a moment of, humanity? Empathy? But instead, the evaluator ends the entire traumatic interview with a joke.
A joke. And a laugh. Hopefully you won't see me again. That means you'd be in trouble again. It is the single most unprofessional, callously tone-deaf statement I have ever heard in a clinical setting.
A man has just described being kidnapped, terrorized, his life threatened, his body weaponized against him, and the entire system turning on him, and she laughs. It's the final, disgusting proof that she never saw him as a human being. He was just a task on her to-do list.
It proves the whole thing was a sham. That laugh is the punctuation mark on a report that was written before she ever walked into the room. It echoes her laugh when he answered an obvious question and her dismissal of his respect as overthinking, and it's a pattern. This joke, it is the perfect, horrifying summary of this entire process.
It really is a process that was supposed to do two things, right, Tom? Determine if he was competent to stand trial and examine how his PTSD could have impaired his state of mind during the incident. And it failed spectacularly on both counts.
It's a complete dereliction of duty. On the one hand, you have Michael Vega, a man who, clip after clip, demonstrates stunning legal insight, ethical reasoning, and self-awareness. He diagnosed the whole crux of the case against him. By any objective measure, he is profoundly competent. The evaluation should have confirmed that on page 1.
But at the same time, he laid out a textbook case for a temporary insanity defense, the parable of the son, the freeze and appease response rooted in decades of medical trauma, the profound fear and coercion. He gave them every reason to see him as a victim whose actions were dictated by trauma, not malice.
Exactly. The evaluator had one job: to listen. And instead, she pathologized his intelligence as manipulation and his trauma as a character flaw. The very evidence that proved his competence was dismissed, and the evidence that could have proven his lack of culpability was ignored. The process was a lie.
It was a betrayal. They took this man, this triple amputee who has suffered more than any 10 people should, a man who still somehow believes in justice, and they used his deepest pains against him. They let the county's most wanted man walk free and built a case against the disabled hostage. This wasn't an evaluation, it was a character assassination designed to create a scapegoat.
The system required a villain. And when the real villain walked out the door, misidentified and released, the system turned on the most vulnerable person left. This report is the legal justification for that injustice. It is a document born of incompetence and polluted by confirmation bias. It is, in my professional opinion, worthless.
And through it all, there's Michael, resilient, brilliant, a man whose body may be broken, but whose spirit and intellect are stronger than the entire corrupt system trying to crush him. He showed more character and grace in that 1-hour interview than his accusers have shown in their entire careers.
His unwavering faith in the system, even as it was actively failing him, is, well, it's a testament to his character.
And that's why we have to share this. Why everyone listening needs to understand what happened. This isn't just Michael Vega's story. It's a warning about what happens when unchecked power meets unbearable vulnerability. We have to demand accountability. We have to be that check on that power.
We believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant. And by bringing these tapes and this story into the light, justice can still be found.
For Michael Vega,